Hello everyone, this is Jimena Gonzalez, and the following is a reading analysis in a dialogue about bilingualism, Chomsky's theories, and a reading about language in the brain. We will discuss different aspects and topics about it and see a personal perspective of it. First, we will go over the lecture about the brain. Throughout this reading, we find how information is stored and several features of its processes. The lecture was mainly focused on language acquisition in the brain, different processes, and the analysis of how the language may affect the mental and metacognitive processes. That is why it is important to reflect on how the brain is considered to be divided. In this order, we have first the temporal lobe, which is the responsible of the autobiographical memory and recognizing memory. Then the parietal lobe helps mediate attention and integrates sensory information. We also have the occipital lobe, which main function is that of vision and recognizing objects in a space. And last, we have the frontal lobe, which as well works with memory processes in our brain. Regarding Chomsky's theories, we first have the natural grammar, which is mainly based on psychological perspectives towards it, meaning linguistics are a branch of psychology, and the primary goal of linguistics was to provide a formalistic mechanism and to able and distinguish the grammar form. And here the order will be speech comprehension, then speech production and thought. Another perspective is the functional grammars regarding Dick 1991, which states that language system is not considered as an autonomous set of rules and principles, which is performance reading functions, meaning used for rules of grammar, only adequately understood when they are analyzed in terms of the conditions of use, and which is for the service of communicative function. And here the order will be meaning, sound, and syntax. Then the cognitive grammar perspective attempts to grammar serving the performance and attempts to the analysis and explicit description of conceptual structures. And here the order will be meaning, production process, grammar, and sound. Throughout the lecture, we found that there were a lot of contradictions, and one of them regards that there is primacy of speech comprehension, and grammar develops in the absence of speech production, and mental grammar is based on speech comprehension. These all perspectives were based on real testimonies of sicknesses and people who were deaf and who didn't have the same physical abilities and still develop the language. Therefore, here the order also could be sound, comprehension, grammar, and meaning. In synthesis, I will agree with the perspective that states production from comprehension, for I believe that it is important to take into account the variety of input, the events which co-occur with the speech, and the environmental situations, such as objects, events, and experiences. This all, I believe, will conclude our fruits of language and give us meaning that later on will intend to be expressed in speech. I will also mention that this also complements and contributes to the previous discussion we had about the relationship between thought and the language learning process. I believe it is an impact as we discussed before, and this perspective really supports it. And finally, in order to conclude our discussion, we have bilingualism and lots of questions, lots of contributions, and authors around it. To the lecture, we found several questions about whether two languages are better than one and what were the multiple benefits of learning a second language, and also monolingual person and a bilingual person. Reflecting on those characteristics, there were mental processes discussed, which were studied and searched to be well impacted by the learning process of a second language. Thus, we have these benefits from the cognitive perspective to the cultural understanding of our environment and context where the language is developed or where the language is taken from in the case of another country. Although we can also find as well several theories in studies studied to see the opposite of this perspective and standing that there is confusion, for example, towards the bilingualism processes in a child. Some authors and researchers were saying that there will be a transfer effect from the L1 to the second language. They were talking about confusion in terms of vocabulary, meaning that children would not learn neither the L1 or the L2 because both languages are having the same level of input from both languages at the same time. Nevertheless, even though regarding this reading, I found that there are more benefits and more advantages of being bilingual than monolingual. I will also take into account my personal experience learning a second language, and I agree with the author when he mentioned that it is not only cognitive benefit and metalinguistic benefit, but also our perception and perspectives of culture and environment. When I got there, I found that I didn't understand the full meaning of words I thought I learned by heart. And then when I tried to listen and pay attention when people were talking to me, I didn't get many things, but with time I started to relate the actions, the environment, the context, the situations, the experiences with the vocabulary, and I found myself constructing with those words that I previously just learned by heart and could identify, but only in an external but not a meaningful way. And so, with this input of just being listening, being really living the language, I was able to construct and own expressions to connect those new words with dialects, with and meaningful information about other cultures. I was living in New York and I had the chance to interact with people from other countries like China, Brazil, Argentina, and I found that language was that channel of cultural interaction, and I think it really is. when we're teaching English, we're not only teaching grammar structures but also a whole culture. And therefore, I think it is really important to consider being bilingual as an option of progress in general. Thanks for watching, and I hope this little dialogue will contribute to our learning processes and our interaction and our comments towards bilingualism, towards the language and the brain, and theories we read throughout the first term of our course. Thank you.